I would like to echo my colleagues' praise for your moral stand, and that you were willing to leave a position in order to maintain your own personal standards of morality, and that speaks very well of you. We're here to hear, I know you have some things to tell us today that will help us understand that situation in Camp Ashraf, and you may proceed with your testimony.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, members of this subcommittee, for having given me the honor and the opportunity to be here to share with you my experience of 3.5 years being in charge of Ashraf file at the United Nations mission for assistance to Iraq. And let me be clear, because when we say Iraqi authorities, we are generalizing. Because in fact, this file is run by the office of the Prime Minister. So the file was handed over in 2009, and from the first day, the Prime Minister's office took over this file. We started receiving complaints. We started receiving complaints about serious violations of human rights, serious violation of humanitarian standards. And when we asked, why aren't you keeping the standard set by the American forces? And they will say to me straight away that these people do not deserve any human rights or any humanitarian treatment. They are terrorists. Unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, the United Nations have dealt with this file in reversing the fundamental principle of presumption of innocence. We have dealt, and I say we, including myself, because I was the lead person on this file. We have dealt with bad faith, and we have presumed guilt, and we expect these people to prove their innocence. This is fundamentally against the main and the fundamental values of the United Nations. Mr. Chairman, in 2008, 17 July 2008, the Council of Ministers met and decided to close down Camp Ashraf. This decision is the official policy of the government of Iraq. And that explains everything when we report, we, the United Nations, reported that everybody is welcome, and that the United Nations, rather the government of Iraq, is meeting its international obligations. At the time, the Iraqi government itself decided and reiterated every year, including in July 2011, reiterated this policy of treating them as terrorists. Anybody who deals with them is committing a criminal offense. Nobody is allowed to visit them. But having set this policy, and the United Nations periodically sends reports to say that the Iraqi government is meeting its international human rights obligations. I will not make any comment. I will leave it to you to draw the conclusions. It was the chair of the so-called Ashraf Committee who met with UNAMI and the representatives of the High Commission of Refugees. And he did warn us very clearly. He said, United Nations, do whatever you want. but we will not implement the human rights and the humanitarian standards the United Nations is advocating for. So that is part of the Iraqi policy. It's not hidden, it's on record. But again, we at the United Nations, we reported that the Iraqi government meets its international obligations. Since I was appointed in charge of this file in January 2009, then came the third Special Representative of Secretary General last October. From the very first day, he turned UNAMI, this is internally, we used to say, UNAMI has been turned into UNAMA. The UNAMA is United Nations Mission for Closing Camp Ashraf. So this sudden policy, change of policy, have made UNAMI devote its assets and time and personnel. 95% of UNAMI was put towards helping the government of Iraq to close Camp Ashraf. Serious money spent on this operation. Serious taxpayers' money spent on this operation to assist the Prime Minister's office implementing the policy I've just stated, which fundamentally against the principles of the United Nations. I reminded my boss, the Special Representative of Secretary General, constantly that what we are doing is unacceptable. I always receive the reply, be positive. Be positive, it means close your eyes. But let me explain why is UNAMI all of a sudden turned into such a machinery for violating its own values and principles.